I had a student in the history of New York class who was actually from the Bronx, and I had another student from Staten Island. And both of them were from very different backgrounds than most of the students that I had in the classroom. And when discussions turned to issues of rent, to issues of public housing, to issues about living in the city, they had very different opinion than most of the other students. And more to the point, they had much different experiences that they shared.
I teach a lot of internationally focused classes, and I have many international students in my classroom. I noticed that for students coming from East Asian cultures, they tend to be respectful, too respectful sometimes, for the professor. They don't ask questions or challenge the professor. But I push them a little bit by asking them to challenge me using examples and cases from their home countries. That opens them up for the discussion, also makes them feeling more confident.
We all take this course, Contemporary Civilizations, and my professor, who's from Poland, at the beginning of the semester said she was going to add to the syllabus some readings from some Polish philosophers as a way for her to bring her own personal connections to the course. And she used that as a segue to talk about how if we ever felt any personal connection, to any of these readings, that we should talk about them, because she felt that was the best way for us to really understand what these writers were talking about.
Last year, I taught a two-course sequence in the Comparative Ethnic Studies program at Columbia. Almost all of my students were students of color. Half of them were first-generation students. And it came up over the course of the semester that there was actually a very strong feeling of animosity against the institution. And so my co-instructor and I worked to, first of all, acknowledge and recognize those feelings so that we could create a space for them to talk about it, a space that was constructive and open. But we also realized that we had to partner very closely with the academic support services and academic advising at Columbia in order to make sure that the students had the resources they needed to succeed in the course.
A strategy that I've seen used in classrooms is for professors to begin a semester with a set of guidelines for classroom discussion to really give students an idea of how to converse with each other and share ideas that may be a little bit uncomfortable, but still really valuable for the classroom experience.
As a student who's also a parent, I have faced challenges in scheduling when required lectures or events take place in the evenings or on the weekends. It's difficult for students who are parents to always attend. Sometimes people have leveraged technology as a strategy to help us with that. By recording the class or the event and then making it available online, we're able to be able to attend basically on our own time.
The way that I think diversity helps with learning is that it allows you to transcend your own learning limitations. I employ a lot of active learning styles. For one example, we do a lot of worksheets in which the students are allowed to work in teams in the classroom as they're learning the material. Along those lines, they are also encouraged to work on homework, problems that they have to turn in. And these homework problems are actually some of the most challenging that I can actually issue in an organic chemistry course. And by working in a very diverse and inclusive environment, the students are much more able to come up with very creative ways of addressing those problems that are issued.
When I was teaching Russian, we had this creative assignment halfway through the semester where students had to write down a dialogue and perform it to the class. It was something that we hadn't done before, and one student in particular who had been pretty average all along, he just blew us all away in terms of his energy and how much he had learned and his ability to perform this role.
In one Arabic literature class, the professor was discussing literature in Baghdad and the arts, and we had an older veteran attending the class, and at a certain point he got up because he was so moved and he had to leave the class, and he came back and he said that you don't learn much behind a rifle. And that moment was not only incredibly moving for me as someone who wants to teach Arabic literature, but it was instructive to see a student's transformation by virtue of the voices that he hadn't previously heard.